What's up, my Bodie broskies? We got us a special one today. We have an MX Unleashed Replica custom track for Reflex. This is Bodie. I don't know how the hell you even say it. But everybody knows this track from MX Unleashed, alright? This track was just made on Reflex just like a month ago by one of, if not the greatest, Reflex track makers ever, the C4 Detonator, alright? But I just had to come in here and show this track. I kind of accidentally hopped on it on a live stream, and I was like, damn, dog. Yeah, this is definitely track review worthy right here. This is one of those things you don't see every day for Reflex. If you got Reflex on PC, definitely worth checking this track out right here, especially if you were like a, MX Unleashed, MX vs. ATV Unleashed sort of fan. This will definitely take you back a little bit right here. Obviously, 10 out of 10, bro. I mean, that's just like, obviously, dude, if you're not giving this track a 10 out of 10, you probably shouldn't even be reviewing tracks for Reflex. Just saying. You know what I'm saying? So, got this big-ass triple. You boys remember that on the actual Unleashed version of this track? So, it's really interesting to see how these certain tracks play differently in the different games, right? Like, the physics of MX Unleashed are dramatically different from the physics of Reflex, but you put the same kind of track in both of the games. It's a cool little vibe to it, bro. It's an interesting little, obviously this feels kind of like a super jump track on Reflex, but I don't know. It's got a fun little throwback kind of feel to it, even on the actual jump faces and everything like that. That jump right there, if you don't let off, you're going to over jump to Texas and back, okay? You don't want to do that. You can kind of take the insides on some of these spots, but it's just what really brings this whole track together is the visual, like the ground decal, the off-track mountains, the way he captured that super dry, hard, packy vibe that this track has on MX Unleashed. This track wouldn't be anything without all of that. You see what I'm saying? So, yes, sir, you can definitely pop off on that Big Daddy jump. I think those jumps right there do feel a little bit bigger on MX Unleashed than they do on Reflex. Some of these jumps, just the way the physics are on Unleashed, they just feel kind of different, so it definitely is a Reflex version of it. It's not going to feel exactly like when you're playing MX Unleashed on this track, so just something to kind of keep in mind there a little bit. But there's definitely some skill gap. I mean, you got to be on the gas, sipping that tea, chugging that tea, guzzling that tea, you know what I'm saying? Doing a little bit of whip glitch. That'll help you out in some spots here. But, yeah, really it's the visual, like the little off-track. Looks like the dirt's kind of cracking a little bit, you know what I'm saying? That's what's really giving it that exacto, perfect sort of visual look to it of the actual track from MX Unleashed, right? So he's also got those big ass inside berms like what you had on MX Unleashed. I don't even know what the deformation would do on this track right here, but bro, I just had to make a video on this one. But yeah, I mean, I think this is about as good as you could have possibly done this. I don't think there's much debate about that. About as good as you could have done it, bro. So, big shout out to the C4 Detonator. I know he's always hopping in my live streams and shit. Big shout out to him. Absolute goated Reflex track maker. No doubt about it. He's ingrained in the history books forever. Okay? But, yeah, dude, definitely got some jump daddies on this track. Whoa, Spency boy. Do a little swirl around, bro. Little 360 on the ground, bro. Oh my god, dude. Even that jump right there. I don't remember that jump feeling that peaked on MX Unleashed. So I do think the C4 Detonator kind of played around a little bit with the jumps. You know, I don't necessarily think it like you're going to be hitting everything exactly like you would have on Unleashed. I mean, you're going to be hitting stuff pretty similar to that, but yeah, it does have a, like I'm saying, it does have a slightly different kind of feeling to it. But I think the majority of the reason of that is just because it's in a whole different physics, game engine, all that kind of stuff. You know, you're never going to be able to 1,420% perfectly replicate the exact feeling and the exact, because, you know, C4 Detonator, I think you can quad daddy that right there. Whoa. Mitch Payton got my suspension set up pretty good, boys. Got that, oh yeah, got that super MX Unleashed vibe, like off-track buildings and shit, you know, those super basic square sort of buildings that Unleashed had to it. And then that little off-track, like, fence post object. That really pulls it together right here, for show, for show. Obviously, perfect skybox for this kind of track. But yeah, yeah, it's like the... I don't know, you know how Unleashed just had those physics where it was like you really jumped up in the air. It was totally different on the ground than what Reflex is. So it captures the vibe of this track, but not like literally exactly as if you're playing Unleashed. You know, it's like it's like a mix of the two. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're playing a... kind of sort of feels like you're playing Unleashed, but you're also not playing Unleashed because you're playing with Reflex physics. So kind of like you combine the two sort of feelings there a little bit. Let's try to hit this inside. Big daddy berms. Big old daddy berms. There's no way that's faster going inside there. Absolutely no way. So yeah, either way, 10 out of 10, like I said, obviously difficulty. I mean, there's not really any roughness. That is the thing about when you make like a Unleashed replica track or something like that. You know, you're only going to be able to make like the skill gap and stuff. That may have been why he made that tabletop right over there a little bit more peaked out. I'm not really sure. You know, but if you don't do certain things to the track, it will feel kind of basic / easy. Because, you know, obviously Unleashed didn't have all the dual stick controls of Reflex and all that kind of jazz to it, so it does kind of have a little bit of that sort of feeling to it, because it doesn't really have a whole lot of, like, roughness, braking bumps. There is some jump skill gap, you know, being able to really hit some of these bigger, like, triple rhythms, because you can pop off if you come up short, but you can also let off right here and actually double this. Okay, and you can also hit this like this. That's a bit of a different rhythm line right there. So there kind of is like two different lines around the entire track. Every jump kind of has like a split lane jump sort of vibe to it. Vibe, bro. Hell yeah, dog. Big shout out to all the old school Spency Boy fans still watching the channel. Big shout out. Some of you boys have been subbed for like 5+ years. Big shout out to you, dog. So, anyways, yeah, this track will take you back, man. I just recently rode on this track on Unleashed, so it definitely will give you that kind of feeling, folks. Show. So either way, boys, yeah, that's about it for this review. Definitely got a hard, packy feel to the track. I guess there is a little bit of kind of sort of like braking bumps in that one spot right there, but that does seem to be the only spot that there's anything like that, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I think the overall scaling of the track might feel a little bit more big on Unleashed. Probably feels it just like feels like that on Unleashed, but obviously you don't want to get too carried away on Reflex with the scaling, or it'll just feel super weird. So that's what I mean by I think this is about as good as you could have like brought a Unleashed track into Reflex, and I'm a major fan of bringing older, you know, dirt bike game tracks into the newer dirt bike games. I think that's a really cool sort of untapped market. Not a whole lot of people has done that, and no better guy to do it than the C4 Detonator. So, yeah, you might be able to triple up out of this right here, but then you'd have to single. That'd probably be pretty slow right there, but yeah, if you kind of just start easing around these corners a little bit, kind of find your flow on the track, you can definitely go a little bit faster. But, yeah, something about this whole jump area right here just feels more massive on Unleashed than it does right here. But I really think that's just more of a physics thing than it is anything. Like, yeah, the scaling could have been a little bit bigger. It could have been, but honestly, I like the track. I mean, I'm not mad about it. But if you wanted to get it a little bit more accurate to the feeling of Unleashed, you know, you could have upped that scaling by like another 10%, and it probably would have captured that just a little bit better. But I don't know, because you start getting into that, you know, if you're trying to make it feel like Unleashed, then you start changing certain things of the track to try to get it to feel more like it did on Unleashed, but in Reflex, then you're kind of changing the track. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you're changing things to try to make the Reflex version feel like literally like you're playing the Unleashed version, then you're probably going to end up running into some problems with like getting the layout to fit right, you know, getting certain objects to look right or fit right on the track. So that may be why C4 Detonator kind of went with more of this, little bit more of like a common Reflex sort of scaling. That's what this feels like to me. It feels like more of a just normal Reflex scaling than it does like a Unleashed kind of scaling. But, 'cause boys, I'm telling you, back in them Unleashed days, they had no limit to the track scaling. Them shits were major, dog. Major scaling. Like, even bigger than this right here feels. But, you know, this on Reflex feels pretty solid. But, yeah, it just kind of feels like you made a Unleashed track, but you made a Reflex version of it. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of at the end of the day what it is. But either way, this is definitely a whip track. Practice your whips on it a little bit. You get into some fun little multiplayer takeouts and shit in these back-to-back fucking 180-degree corners, you know what I'm saying? So either way, guys, yeah, I had fun on this track. This is a good one. This little section right here, it's like a super flat corner. Very easy to over jump. So it's unique, got its own vibe to it. I know it's not easy making replica like tracks off of older dirt bike games. I've actually done that for MX Sim a little bit, and I'm telling you right now, it is not easy to find the right kind of like decals and objects and all that kind of stuff that you got to be able to get to really capture that sort of look to that particular track, and that is definitely what C4 Detonator has been able to do here. So yeah, big shout out to him for making this track. Really cool to still see Reflex custom tracks all the way in 2023. Still see in 2023, bro. Spency boy rapping, bro. I don't know, it's just something really cool about that to me. It's like, Reflex still the GOAT, dog. Don't sit here and try to play around. Reflex still the GOAT, bro. And it ain't up for debate. It ain't like a question. It ain't like, well, maybe. No, dog. If you're one of those kind of dudes that you think Reflex is not the GOAT of arcade dirt bike games, you don't really understand dirt bike games, and we ain't the same, bro.